another fundamentally important step is the circadian alignment. You have to, this is a non-negotiable, not just for cancer, for anyone that wants to live a long, healthy, happy life. Circadian alignment it won the Nobel Prize in 2018. It's the new frontier of, well, there aren't many areas of medicine that aren't being affected by the increasing knowledge of circadian alignment, circadian medicine. And in the cancer arena, it's sacrosanct because healthy cells that are in circadian alignment, particularly immune cells, are more anti-cancer. But what they've now shown is that cancer cells, they didn't know this until quite recently, cancer cells actually have their own circadian clock. And there was a famous study done on people with terminal brain cancer. So the same diagnosis, the same prognosis, the same conventional treatments. The people who had brain cancer cells that were in circadian misalignment died significantly sooner than those who had the same cancer, but the cancer cells were in circadian alignment. Yeah, and it's because we now know that when cancer cells are circadian aligned, they don't become dormant, but the activity very often slows down to the cycle rate. Yeah, so it's massive. Yeah.
So what you're saying is if someone has cancer and they go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every single day, they will die.
Well, there's evidence to show
that people have lived longer by doing that.
Yeah, so the other way around. So circadian misalignment is now classified as a type 1A carcinogen.
Yes, I heard that.
So it's like saying, well, smoking's a carcinogen, tar is a carcinogen, circadian misalignment is a carcinogen.
So if people wake up and go to sleep at the different times every single day, it's basically like them smoking.
Yeah, pretty much.
No way.
And but our environment is, you've got to, this opens a can of worms because it's how deep you go with this. But I think what is lost in the translation is something called the Palaeolithic genome.
Okay.
So, as a species, we're 200,000 years old. We emerged in Tanzania 180, 200,000 years ago.
Did we? Wow.
So our genome is 90% the same now as it was then. But how did we live then? Imagine Tanzania 200,000 years ago, no artificial light, no electricity. What did we do? No diurnal, daytime mammal. Every other species other than humans that is daytime active wakes up with the sun, is active, eats and moves in the daylight and then goes to bed when it gets dark. Because you can't hunt, you can't eat.
True.
Back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers, and every healthy species does that. But obviously we've engineered lights and, we can get Ubers at 2 a.m. We can work on our emails at 11 at night. So we've engineered a world where it's harder to be in circadian alignment. So it's easier to be in circadian misalignment than it is circadian alignment. And our genome hasn't evolved to deal with that. It might do, who knows? But at the moment, what we're essentially doing is we're asking a fish to swim out of water. We haven't got the hardware or the software to live in the environment that we've created for ourselves.
So what is the perfect kind of alignment? Because I have a real issue with this whole circadian rhythm thing. I'll tell you why. My Oura ring tells me that I should wake up at around 6:30 or 7.
Yeah.
And then it says I should go to bed around 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? Now, when I do that, I feel like a slob.
Yeah.
Because when I started this podcast, I used to wake up at 5 a.m. I used to have so much energy. I was so excited. I used to voice note myself at 2 a.m. in the morning. I was barely sleeping. And I used to kind of wear it as a badge of honor. Then, I did it for a long time and kind of the passion kind of died down a little bit. And I'm just joking. But, I have in my 30s struggled more with little sleep.
Okay.
So now I sleep a lot more. So I sleep 7 to 8 hours now. Now, a lot of the time, I still want to wake up really early because I feel that I have protected parts of my day. Once 8 o'clock hits, it's chaos, it's mayhem. Yeah. So I do like to wake up around 5:30.
Yeah.
Now, one of my other podcasts, I was telling my guest is that Nikhil, my partner, he can wake up at 5 a.m. and he's totally fine. He'll wake up, he'll jump out of bed, go to the gym straight away. I can't go to the gym straight away.
No.
Now, if he wakes up really early, he's going to sleep early.
Yeah.
Right? So when we started living together, because we were both in this routine before we lived together, we're like, we'll sleep early and we'll wake up early together. Now, that kind of lasted for about 6 months.
Yeah.
One of us, i.e. me, said, I'm going to wake up a little bit later because I have something, big, I have lots of events to go to. I'd come back late a lot of the time. But I basically started to sleep a little bit later. Now, we then started going to bed at different times and waking up at different times. So what's really difficult now is like, I am really tired, but he wakes up and I wake up with him.
Yeah.
But I'm so exhausted. And then what happens is the whole day I feel so tired.
Yeah.
And I want to get into bed. I have about 10,000 billion things that I've forgotten to do. And I'm just not in my circadian rhythm. Now, I don't know whether to follow Aura, which tells me, Shivani, wake up at about 6:37, but go to bed at 11, which would also mean that I'm out of sync with him.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wake up that late because I like to go to Pilates at 7 a.m. or at the gym. But do I then, and then also the other side is lots of people say you should wake up at 5 a.m., sunrise, all the rest of that. What do I do?
There's so many sides to this. I think we have to take the foundational one. So the things like the sleep trackers, they're tracking sleep quantity and quality, aren't they? Relevant to how much you need. They're not tracking it as a function of circadian alignment.
Okay, but Aura does say chronotype.
Yeah, so that will dictate your sleep profile. But your circadian alignment is not it's not dictated by what we think or whether we like getting up at 5 a.m. and meditating. It's driven by the structure of the brain. It's not up for debate. It's not open to interpretation. So within your brain, you have right at the center of the brain, something called the SCN, which stands for the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that's the Big Ben, the master timekeeper in the body. When that is activated in the morning, and I'll get to what activates it in a second, that then pulls the string on how the body will work for the next 24 hours. And you can't redeem that if it's missed until the next day. So what stimulates, this is what won the Nobel Prize. So what stimulates the SCN, the master clock, is, so you have daytime clock genes and nighttime clock genes. So when the SCN switches on in the morning, that then turns off all of the nighttime genes and turns on all of the daytime genes, and they will control everything that has to happen, trillions, infinite number of things that has to happen between then and sunset for your body to be strong. Immune function, digestion, cerebral blood, everything, merely trillions of things. Once the sun sets, they then turn off and the nighttime genes come on. And they will control the things that can only happen at night, particularly things like neural detoxification. You can only clear neural toxins at night, which is why poor sleep is linked to Alzheimer's. But the thing that triggers everything, so the SCN governs everything, but what governs the SCN is the UVA, UVB infrared frequency in the first 90 minutes after sunrise.
Okay. So what does that mean?
So that means if you expose your eyes to light in the first 90 minutes after sunrise, it will stimulate the SCN to do everything it has to do. Job done. If you miss that stimulation and the SCN is then out of sync, the body's going to be out of sync for the next 24 hours. Not catastrophically, but it will be out of sync. You can biohack it with things like the sun lamps and things like that.
Got it.
So in terms of tiredness and when you wake up, there's obviously quite a significant, in the northern latitudes, a seasonal shift there. Now, the sunrise is at 4:45.
Yeah.
So that means as long as you're waking, say 5, make it easy, as long as you're waking up before 5:30, you're going to be exposing your eyes to the right frequency of light, which is going to stimulate the SCN, which is going to regulate your circadian alignment for the next 24 hours.
But what if I woke up at 7 and exposed myself to sunlight?
The frequency of light wouldn't be the infrared, the UVA, UVB has lost that frequency. So it's sunrise. So it's the light that's emitted by the sun in the first 90 minutes after it crests the horizon.
No way.
Yeah, which is the same for all diurnal mammals. Like I said, when we were living as hunter-gatherers, we always woke with the sun. It's an evolutionary driver. So that as the sun comes up, what does the body wakes up? So what happens? So the body says, well, if I'm waking up, I need to be active. So what then happens is our cortisol we think of as being this bad stress hormone, which it is, but it's one of the most important hormones in the body because it's one of the only hormones where you get a really big spike once a day, which is between about, there's a degree of variation, but most people say by 6 in the morning. So between about 4 and 6, cortisol is dumping into the blood from the adrenals. And that's your get up and go hormone in preparation for waking up. So come between 6 and 6:30 most times, your body is primed to get up somewhere between 5 and 6:30. So the cortisol's fired, your blood pressure, your blood flow, your hormones, your digestive system, everything's firing up, because you know from millions of years of evolution that because the sun's coming up, you're going to wake up, which means you need to move, you need to eat, you need to think. So all of the things that happen in the day are fired up in preparation for doing that.
You're saying every single person has that within them between 5 and 6:30 a.m.
There's a lot of debate around how fixed that is across people.
Okay.
But the SCN, the part of the brain that pulls the trigger, that is unequivocal. That can only be stimulated by the unique frequency of light that is emitted in sunrise sunlight, dawn sunrise.
That is crazy. So wherever you are in the world, you should try and get up between, when the sun rises and 90 minutes after it.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't, for people who say, well, I'm not a morning person, I don't like to wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I like to sleep in till about 10, 11 o'clock because that's when I like to start my day and I have most energy.
Yeah.
What's the consequence for late sleepers or not morning types?
The consequence is that you're going to be in a chronic state of circadian misalignment, because you're waking up at a point where you're then giving your eyes a stimulus which it doesn't know what to do with. It's saying, well, I should have been awake 3 hours ago, and I'm not. And a great example of this, and I always see it in myself, is holidays. I love holidays, but I hate how they make me feel. I feel sluggish and I feel lethargic. And the reason is I usually sleep in, I get up at 5 every morning.
Every single day?
Every single day. Well, not so much on the weekends, but I try to every day, Monday to Friday, religiously.
Okay. What time do you wake up on the weekends, by the way?
Whenever I wake up, I don't set an alarm.
Roughly?
6:30.
Okay, so you haven't got that much of a gap is what I was trying to get at,
Because the same as what you said, if I get up after 7, I feel awful.
Right.
I feel like on holiday, how you get holiday and the first few days you're on real rhythm, and then suddenly you just morph into this like slob.
Yeah.
By the end of it, you're waking up at 9, and you get home and I feel like I need a holiday to recover from the holiday. And that's because it's essentially like a minor jet lag. You think about jet lag. If you got on the plane to flew to Australia, what would happen for the next 72 hours? Your digestion's out of sync.
Yes.
You feel awful. Why? The only reason for that is because your circadian alignment is completely upended. Nothing to do with being on a plane doesn't help, and being dehydrated doesn't help, but they're tiny in comparison to the fact that your SCN doesn't know whether it's coming or going. So all of your cellular function, your metabolic function, your whole body is in an acute state of circadian misalignment. But many people are living like that, just at a dialed down. It's not like acute jet lag, but the actual impact upon how we experience our body, things like chronic digestive impairment, bad digestion, tired. We shouldn't be feeling tired if we're getting good sleep.
Right.
Weakened immunity. This is why it's so aligned with the cancer work. Circadian misalignment is one of the most damaging things to human immune function in terms of risks of infections and things like that. So the bottom line is that every single 50, 60 trillion cells in the body, every single one has its own clock, every cell. If that cell is aligned with the SCN, we are in a very, very good place, because there's synergy and harmony between the cells and the master timekeeper. If there's conflict between what the brain wants based upon evolution and the way we live, you get circadian misalignment. So you get home late from work, it's 9 o'clock, you shouldn't eat, but you sit down in front of Netflix, you watch telly and start eating a pizza at 9:30. Your SCN is saying it's evening. From evolutionary speaking, we don't eat at this time. So it turns off all your bile flow, your digestive enzymes.
Wow.
But by putting food in, your digestive system saying, well, I've got no choice. I can't not deal with this because you just put a pizza into my stomach. So it has to then fire up. The brain saying dial down. The cells are saying fire up. And then you get this huge cellular conflict between what the brain wants and what your cells are being forced to do through your action. And that is essentially what jet lag is, but just on a minor level. So things like working late in the evening, blue light, exercising at the wrong times, eating at the wrong there's a million and one things, but our culture makes it very easy to do that. Very easy.
If we've got our lights on, we've got our lamps on, we're on our laptops, watching TV, we're basically just telling our bodies that it's daylight still. So then how is our SEN still not on? Does that make sense?
The SCN's always tracking because it's obviously it's 24 hour. But what it will do, so it doesn't notice darkness, it notices the absence of light. So when the sun sets, that then tells the SCN that the day has ended. And once the sun sets, that's my period of time where everything that can only happen at night, like immune rejuvenation and detoxification, et cetera, those things have to happen now. So the SCN, as soon as it notices there's no more light, switches the trip, the daytime genes turn off, the nighttime genes turn on, and then they regulate optimally everything that happens through the night. And that's what's interesting, is that Ayurveda had a blueprint for this called Dinachara, which is almost a carbon copy of this Nobel Prize-winning model.
No way.
Yeah, and it calls it one day lived in bliss, which is a beautiful concept. So you get up at the right time, you live the right way, you eat in the right way, you go to sleep at the right way, you have the perfect night's sleep, you wake up the next day. So 24 hours lived in complete cellular harmony.